I trusted him more than anyone alive. That's what makes this harder to say out loud. The night everything broke, I wasn't angry yet. I was confused, because betrayal doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives wearing a familiar face. Welcome to the channel. New and returning viewers, tell us where you're watching from. This channel tells stories that hit close to home. If that's your kind of story, consider subscribing. Ethan Walker and I grew up together. Same street, same schools, same dreams scribbled in notebooks we swore would matter one day. When my father died, Ethan stood beside me at the funeral. When I started my company, he slept on the office couch with me. Trust wasn't given, it was built. By 35, we had everything we talked about. The company was profitable. The office overlooked the river. Employees called us the perfect partnership. I handled vision. Ethan handled operations. He said he preferred being behind the scenes. I never questioned that. The first sign was small. A delayed report. A meeting I wasn't invited to. Ethan said it was nothing. I believed him, because trust teaches you to ignore your instincts. Then vendors started calling me directly. Quiet calls, careful words. They asked if Ethan was still authorized to approve payments. I laughed it off. I told them yes. After I hung up, my chest felt tight. I checked the books that night. Not because I suspected him, because I trusted him enough to assume I was wrong. Numbers don't lie. But they also don't explain motives. Transfers I didn't approve. Accounts I didn't recognize. I confronted Ethan the next morning, casually, almost joking. He smiled too quickly, said I was overworked, suggested I take time off. That's when I knew. That night I couldn't sleep. Not because of money, because I realized something worse. If Ethan was lying now, how long had he been lying before I noticed? The next week moved too smoothly. Ethan became attentive in a way that felt rehearsed. He copied me on emails he never used to. He scheduled meetings early and ended them fast. Everyone said he was stepping up. I felt like I was being managed out of my own life. I hired a private auditor without telling him. Not a firm. One person. Quiet. Precise. Someone who knew how to disappear into data. I told myself it was temporary. I still hoped I was wrong. The report came back in fragments. Shell companies. Layered approvals. Funds rerouted in ways that looked accidental. But patterns don't form by accident. Ethan had been planning this for months. Maybe longer. I replayed every conversation we'd ever had. Every joke about loyalty. Every promise about having each other's backs. In hindsight, his distance made sense. You don't look someone in the eye while you're replacing them. I checked corporate filings. There it was. A clause activated without my signature. Emergency authority. Legal. Executed. Ethan had positioned himself as the solution to a crisis he created. I didn't confront him again. Not yet. I watched. I listened. Trust had turned into surveillance. And I was learning more by staying silent than I ever did by speaking. Employees started treating me differently. Subtle changes. Questions redirected to Ethan. Decisions delayed until he approved them. Authority doesn't disappear overnight. It erodes. One evening, the auditor called. His voice was steady, almost apologetic. He said, "You should prepare yourself." That was the moment trust finally died. The auditor laid it out cleanly. Ethan wasn't stealing to run. He was stealing to stay. He wanted control without resistance, influence without visibility. He had been reshaping the company around himself while I spoke about growth on stages. I asked the hardest question last. How bad is it? The auditor didn't hesitate. Enough to collapse the company if exposed wrong. Enough to bury Ethan legally. Enough to take me down with him if I moved too fast. I walked the office alone after midnight. Lights off, desks empty. This place carried our history. Every win, every late night. Ethan's betrayal hadn't just taken money, it had poisoned memory. I realized then that confrontation wasn't the answer. Exposure was, but not publicly. Not yet. I needed Ethan confident, careless, certain he had already won. So I played my role. I praised Ethan in meetings, let him speak for both of us, deferred decisions, smiled when he corrected me. Trust became bait. Behind the scenes, I documented everything: emails, authorizations, timestamps. Every approval he rushed through, every shortcut he assumed I'd never notice. The net tightened quietly. Then Ethan made a mistake. He tried to move everything at once. Large transfer, final stage. That kind of greed leaves fingerprints, even for someone careful. I didn't stop him. I let it happen. Because once you understand betrayal, you stop trying to prevent it. You let it finish. The transfer triggered internal alarms, not the kind employees see, the kind regulators review later. I logged the time. I saved the confirmation. Ethan thought speed would protect him. Speed only leaves sharper edges. He invited me to dinner that night. Same place we celebrated our first contract. Same table. Same easy tone. He talked about expansion, about loyalty. I nodded where I was expected to. Trust had become theater. I remembered something my father once said. People betray you the loudest when they think you're deaf. Ethan ordered wine. He toasted the future. I raised my glass. I didn't drink. The next morning, I scheduled an emergency board review, routine language, neutral agenda. Ethan didn't object. He had already insulated himself legally, or so he believed. During the meeting, Ethan spoke first, confident, prepared. He outlined the transfer as a protective maneuver, temporary, necessary. The board listened. Then they turned to me. I didn't accuse him. I asked questions, slow ones, specific ones, about approvals, about timing, about authority. Silence stretched where certainty used to live. I submitted the audit file, not dramatically, just placed it on the table. One board member opened it. Another leaned closer. Ethan didn't look at me. He already knew. The meeting adjourned without a decision. But decisions had already been made. Ethan left first. He didn't say goodbye. Trust doesn't collapse. It exits quietly. The board didn't call me immediately. They never do when the truth is inconvenient. They asked for time to review, time to consult counsel, time to protect themselves. Ethan stayed away from the office. He sent messages instead. Short ones, professional ones, as if distance could undo what he'd already set in motion. I walked through the building like a visitor. People smiled carefully. The air felt rearranged. Power doesn't vanish. It reallocates. Ethan finally called at midnight. His voice was controlled. Too controlled. He said the board was overreacting, that this would blow over, that we should present a united front. I listened without interrupting. Then I said one sentence. I've already done that. He didn't ask what I meant. He ended the call. That's when fear replaced confidence. The board meeting was reconvened 48 hours later. This time, legal counsel filled half the room. Compliance officers took notes. Ethan arrived late. He looked smaller somehow, not guilty, cornered. I spoke first, not emotionally, methodically, timeline, intent, impact. I didn't accuse him of betrayal. I described his actions. Facts don't need adjectives. Ethan finally defended himself. He said he acted for the company. That growth requires sacrifice. That loyalty sometimes means making hard choices alone. I watched the room instead of him. No one nodded. No one supported him openly. That's when I knew it was over. Not because they believed me, because they no longer trusted him. If you're still watching, take a minute and subscribe. Stories like this are about what happens when trust breaks quietly. The decision came without ceremony. Ethan was placed on administrative leave, access revoked, accounts frozen. An internal investigation launched. He didn't look at me when the words were read. I didn't look at him either. Closure isn't a stare down. It's acceptance that the version of someone you loved no longer exists. I stayed late again. not out of habit, out of necessity. There were messages to answer, employees to reassure, systems to stabilize. I signed documents Ethan once handled. The irony didn't escape me. Trust had trained me well. I knew exactly where everything was. Ethan sent one final email. No apology, no explanation, just disappointment. He said I should have come to him first. I deleted it without replying. Some conversations end because they were never honest to begin with. I left the office as the sun came up. The city looked the same. That's the lie betrayal tells you, that everything changes. Most things don't. Only your illusions do. And once they're gone, you stop confusing familiarity with trust. The investigation unfolded without drama. No arrests, no shouting. Just subpoenas, interviews, and quiet consequences. Ethan's name stopped appearing on emails, then on documents, then in conversation. Erasure happens faster than betrayal. The board asked me to take full control. Interim at first, then permanent. They framed it as stability. I understood it as responsibility. Trust had been broken once. I wasn't going to let it fracture again. Employees adjusted quickly. They always do. New processes, clear oversight, transparency where secrecy used to live. Morale improved not because Ethan was gone, but because uncertainty was. I ran into Ethan weeks later by accident. Coffee shop, early morning. He looked tired, not broken, just exposed. He nodded. I nodded back. Nothing needed to be said. I used to replay our history, wondering where it went wrong. I don't anymore. Some people don't change. They reveal. And when they do, your only job is to believe them. The company grew again. Not faster, cleaner. We lost shortcuts. We gained trust. That trade was worth it. Sometimes people ask if I miss him. I tell them the truth. I miss who I thought he was. That person never existed. And accepting that was the real ending. Trust isn't about history. It's about alignment. When that breaks, walking away isn't weakness. It's clarity. And clarity lasts longer than friendship ever did. If this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel. Like the video if you believe trust should be earned, not assumed. Comment what this story made you feel. And stay connected for more stories where the truth changes everything.